help us keep it going. Every listen, like, and subscription to The Unfolding presented by the Loveland Foundation helps us do more than just share powerful stories. It helps fund real therapy sessions for Black women and girls across the country. When you subscribe, you're not just supporting a podcast, you're helping us show funders that this work matters, that this community is growing, and mental health support deserves real investment. So if you've been moved by what you've heard, take a second, like, subscribe, and share. It is a small gesture that can make a generational impact. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Unfolding, presented by the Loveland Foundation. Today, this episode is, I'm really excited. It's for anyone who's just craving some connection and just a soft place to land. We are joined by the self-love queen herself, Denise Francis, founder, CEO of the Self-Love Organization. And we're just going to have a conversation about healing and just about self-love journey and just about trying to exist and trying to live and trying to thrive and just trying to be who we're meant to be. So welcome, Denise. Hello.
Hey, hi. I'm so happy to be here.
We're so happy to have you here. I've had my eyes on Denise. That sounds so weird, but I've just been like so excited to have you on the show. Like I'm just like, as like a fan, as a follower, I'm just like, she just has such, you guys will find out, but like she has the warmest like energy and spirit and soul and just has like this like way of like looking at things that just like makes it a lot more clear and a lot more like easier to understand. So yes, thank you so much for coming on and joining us. I will stop fangirling, but I just want to throw some flowers at you.
Thank you. I'm ecstatic. I love healing. I've been on my healing journey for years. This is a conversation that I can have over and over again, and it will never lose its spark for me. So happy to be here.
I love it. Okay, well, you already opened it up. So you said this healing journey for 10 years. How did it start? Like where, like what was this, like how did this journey begin for you?
Yeah. So this journey started for me 10 years ago. I was just entering college and just leaving high school. And there was a little bit of a disconnect for me because I was on a previous journey before that. The journey I was on before that was actually a natural hair journey. I used to share my natural hair journey from start to finish, the good, bad, and the ugly, just learning what my hair is and everything was going well. And then I reached a point in my natural hair journey, I want to say maybe 4 or 5 years in, when I realized that I am kind of struggling, that I was still feeling insecure. And what was interesting about that was I started the journey in the first place because I felt insecure. I had this really weird feeling of kind of dodging people in between hairstyles when I was younger, where I was kind of just like, well, my hair is not done, so I don't feel beautiful. And that was a trend that continued. And I thought I healed that conversation when I started my natural hair journey. My hair was flourishing and I was feeling good. But I realized that I was still very insecure about it, or I still had a really hard time feeling my best, feeling beautiful, feeling seen. There was still a lot of lingering feelings or emotions like anxiety, and that I never really got to fully analyze. And it was in that moment that I realized that I can do all of the self-care masks and procedures I want, but nothing is going to heal my inner child. And I realized along the ending of my natural hair journey, or just like sharing that journey, that it was time for me to start a new one, that I needed to start diving a little bit more deeper, that it's not just about how I look on the outside, that a lot of the things that I'm experiencing is actually on the inside. And that's where I need to put forth my attention. So I kind of graduated from my natural hair journey and started my self-love journey. And that was 10 years ago. The last 10 years, I've been very dedicated to healing myself and others and sharing that journey and really opening up that world of the things that we need to do for self-care is not outside of ourselves. The things that we need to do for self-care is inside of ourselves. And that started a whole journey, a whole company, a whole organization, a whole retreat, a whole TED Talk, a whole...
Another one.
But it started so many things, because one thing that I realized on sharing my self-love journey, which is why I like to call myself a self-love queen, I'm not the only one. Is that a lot of us are going through this. A lot of us, for some of us, I realized it early on, and I'm so thankful that I did, but a lot of us are now realizing this, that I'm doing all the things that I need to do, but I'm still not feeling the way I want to feel. And there was just a disconnect between the woman that I thought that I was becoming versus the woman I actually was. And I was like, okay, it's time for a change and it's time to do things differently and to dive a little bit more deeper, ask myself the hard questions and give myself enough time to listen. I had to change a lot of the habits that I had at the time, which made me realize that, oh, this is a journey. This is yeah, like this this is serious and this is gonna take some time for me to unlearn the things that I've taught myself or adopted from my culture. And it was time for me to start making changes so that I can finally like heal her.
Oh, no, I truly resonate with everything you're saying because hair is such a like a spiritual connector, especially like for Black women. You're so tied to your hair and like you're just like, this is the crown on my head. This is like how I present to people. And like historically, the meaning of like what our hair means, how political it could be, how
I
it just
literally the oh my god.
the amount of times I'll just be like, "Oh, just get my hair to be this way," or just
Yeah,
like get this
yeah.
way. And just it really is like I think it's such a window or like a symbol for like what self-love looks like and like that self-acceptance and knowing that like our self-worth isn't placed on like what other people's standard of beauty are. Cause like I feel like they're just catching up to our beauty and like what it is and like what we
Yes,
could like improve.
exactly. And even
And
that
like
is something to explore too, like
exactly. No, there's layers to it. I'm picking up. I'm picking
There's like my journey started because of my natural hair journey, but it dives a little bit deeper into that. I didn't realize that like on top of this feeling of like, am I acceptable? But I accept myself and I find myself beautiful, but the world doesn't, and me trying to just like navigate the limbo that can exist between the two. There was also the conversation, like, culturally or just like within the women, that I've experienced of like mental health care and
Yes.
understanding like, okay, so it's like, yeah, I do all these things and I still feel anxious. I do all these things, I feel sad, or I do all these things that I still feel overwhelmed or overstimulated or, whatever you may be going through here. And for me, it wasn't until I was actually in school when I was starting this journey, this self-love journey, that I was sitting inside of my psychology 101 class and the professor started talking about anxiety in general, anxiety disorder and all of the different disorders and coping mechanisms and all the things. And all of a sudden, everything clicked.
Hmm.
It clicked.
I know.
Yes, I was like, this is what has been happening to me. And when he was talking directly to me. I was like,
Mhm.
oh, this is, yeah, yeah. I was like, oh, this is what's been going on. This is this feeling that, keeps lingering and I just push it away and keeps coming back. Like, that's what this is. And that also sparked that, deeper level of healing things within inside of me instead of focusing more on how self-care is marketed on what
Yeah.
comes.
No, I think that's such a like a beautiful topic to just touch and transition to because there's this I feel like self-love has been like definitely like glamorized, but also like they capitalism is real, and like
So, well, been capitalized, yeah,
yeah, and it's
yeah,
like part of me is here for it because yes, make it more accessible, but also like make it more known and like,
yeah.
like accepted in that way, but also I don't want the true message of it to get lost. And so, like, what would you say is like has been like your understanding of self love beyond the buzzwords, beyond like the big like topics and like the
Mm,
salesy of it? Like, what has self love mean for you in this like the lens of mental health?
that is such a beautiful question. So, self-love for me in the lens of mental health, self-love for me is mental wellness. It
Mhm.
is keeping you mentally well, spiritually well, physically well. Self-love is essentially, I like to think of it as an umbrella. And underneath it falls so many other self issues. For example, self trust, self worth, self acceptance, and so many more. And it's underneath that umbrella that all of these things live. And when we are only working on the things on top of the umbrella, like making sure the umbrella has a 10-step skincare routine and making sure that the umbrella, has the nicest, thing, um, on the outside, we fail to look at, the boning underneath the umbrella. So I like to look at self-love as equally mental wellness. It is
Yes.
mental health, wellness mixed in together, where you were generally caring for all of the different parts of you, the inner child version of you, the adult version of you, the woman who you're trying to become version of you, the version of you that you're healing. All is underneath that umbrella that's looking at self efficacy, that's looking at self acceptance, is looking at self worth, is looking at self love, is looking at self care. All, and when we think about there's self and then there's blank, right?
Mm.
And I really like to look at the journey of going through all of those things and really giving it your best shot. So for me, it was not having self confidence at the time,
Mm.
focused on self confidence. And then I moved on to self acceptance. And then I started, I was in school. So it was the perfect environment for self efficacy and self worth, self comparison. And I think when we look at it like that, it makes it really easier to understand that self love is not necessarily something that can be bought. It's something that has to be taught and or learned. It's something that we need to see other people doing in order for it to look like something that we can achieve. I always talk about how the strong Black woman trope is a trope
Yes.
that has existed for years and that we can argue hasn't served us for years. But I yearn for Black women to have more words before Black women than strong. I yearn
Mm.
for healed Black women. I learned for the protected Black woman. I yearn for the soft Black woman, for the vulnerable Black woman. I think when we start to explore that there's more to us than being strong, we allow ourselves to open up ourselves to the world, but equally we open ourselves to ourselves, where we're able to, again, ask ourselves the deep questions and give ourselves enough time to actually answer them. That was one of the biggest journeys that I went on. Like, for example, when I first started my journey, one of the first things I wanted to do was form a level of comfort within myself. I realized that if I left the house, I was playing music in my ears. Then I would go to class or I would go to work or wherever I was, and I was hyper focused on that. Then I go home and I'm hyper focused on everyone else. Then I'm watching something. I'm always stimulating myself with something that felt like a distraction, where I never gave myself the silence to really hear what's going on and to give myself the time to address it. So I look at self care or just self love as learning that there are different versions of you that need your attention and your healing, your support, your protection, and admiration. And you have to give yourself the time and the energy to really pour into those versions of yourself.
Okay. So you just want to say all that amazing stuff and just drop all those mics. Let and this is
Because, we're overstimulated. Sometimes we need to be overstimulated. We need to hear what's like really
yeah.
going on. We need to hear ourselves, Like I always say that, there's a little girl inside of you probably screaming, but you'll never hear her if you don't give her the
Mm.
chance, if you don't listen.
No, truly, I have been on this journey as well, and it is not linear, I will say that, and there is
Oh,
moments
self love for
maybe.
put yourself in the same place again. Like, how did I get back here?
I was like, "Wait a second, I thought I overcame this obstacle, no? Okay, let me tr"
What is that? It's like,
Right, right, no, I just, no, I am where I'm at in this journey right now is I'm really trying to know myself and know what my
yeah,
wants are, what my needs are,
yeah,
and you spoke to something, in, like, my research review, you were talking about, like, this idea of, like, silencing yourself in the past, and,
yeah,
like and
yes.
that is something that, like, has been, like, my biggest challenge so far. It's just, like, how to no longer silence myself, silence my needs, silence my wants, like, silence my dreams and my desires. So one thing that, therapists in the past have told me, astrologers have told me, friends have told me, anyone who's met me has told me, like, "Yo, start journaling." I'm just like, "Oh,
Oh,
much prefer." Don't really
wait,
like
no, I love me a journal. I am
I'm And so,
like,
like, it just could be a bit like for me, journaling has always felt a bit intimidating because 'cause I'm just like, "What am I even gonna talk about? What am I gonna say? What do I like, how do I is this gonna help? Is this gonna work?" And I am, like, giving myself the challenge to, like, truly start because 'cause I'm I'm ready to know who Rachel is, like, outside of all these roles that I play
Yeah.
in other people's lives and, like, wanting to know, like, who I am for myself and for what I need and, like, truly, like, what it is that I want. I turned 30 last year, and I'm just, like, in this, like, era of, like, "Okay, what does Rachel want? What does Rachel need?" Like, and, like, this idea of, like, how I'm able to, like, show up for myself to be better show up for my community in that way. So, yeah, I'm just curious, like, how has journaling been a tool for you and played a role in your life? I know you have a journal.
I'm looking at it right now. It's right here. Um, I I love that you brought up the conversation of self-silencing. That's something that I speak about often. It's something I've talked about a lot in my TED Talk, where I talked about the power of the Black woman self-love journey. Because I always see it as, as we learn to heal, our daughters will learn to heal as well. And it will be something that can be continuously adopted into our culture, into our mannerisms, into our habits, until the point that it becomes adopted the same way that we adopted the self silencing behaviors of the strong Black woman. You know,
Mhm.
I like to every now and then I tell the story on how like there was a certain point in my life that I'd never seen any of the women in my family even cry. That wasn't necessarily something that was displayed. And, there were certain moments where it was accepted, like at a funeral or during childbirth, but it wasn't just like a general cry. It was,
Yeah.
I'm feeling something and I'm expressing that feeling. And, the opposite of that is silencing. And that equals that strong Black woman trope. Um, so journaling for me was actually one of the first things I did in my healing journey and in my self-love journey. It was the first tool that I used. And what I started doing was just opening my journal and allowing myself to just pour. Because if I am adopting and holding on to these self-silencing behaviors, then I need to have a space where that silence can no longer exist. And my journal, putting pen to paper was that space that really allowed some form of just like emotional freedom. There was emotional safety in between those pages because it was my space. It wasn't a space to be judged. It wasn't a space to be shared. It was my space. And what's
Mhm.
really beautiful about it is that, when as you grow and you start to look back at your journal entries, you start to really see your growth. And it is the most beautiful thing to read those pages and realize that you are no longer that girl or that graduated from that season of your life. And it's such a beautiful feeling. So after my 10-year journey, a couple of years ago, I decided to create a journal sharing all of the prompts that I used on my journey. I also worked with therapists to make sure that the journal was therapist approved to make sure that
Mhm.
tool that was, vetted by therapists, but also vetted by my 10-year-long journey. All the questions that I asked myself in my journal, all the questions that arose from rereading the journal. I actually have it right here on my desk. Actually, I use that. My baby right here. I call it Soul Study Self-Love Journal. It has 115 therapist-approved self-therapy prompts, and I call them self-therapy because this journal feels like therapy. I wanted to
Mhm.
create something where therapy could feel accessible if that's not something that you're ready to do, if that's something that you can afford, that there's a tangible healing tool that you'll have access to. That was vetted by therapists, so there is that, that safety there, but it just gives you that emotional safety with 115 prompts, 3 chapters, check-ins, a glossary, and everything that you may need to start your healing journey. So this is my baby.
Yeah.
I love her. But it was definitely beautiful to kind of turn my journal entries into this resource. And and I keep it next to me all the time because I
You
still use it.
should.
Yeah. I still use it to this day because, even me on my journey, sometimes I'm like, what should I journal about? What
Mhm.
questions do I have?
Literally
Some
be
of the questions come from experience,
Mhm.
about like how was your day, and you're just kind of like dumping and sharing. But one of the things I really do love about journaling is that even if you don't have a daily guided prompted journal, just allowing yourself to write freely in that emotional safety does give you an opportunity to realize certain patterns or thought processes that you
Mhm.
keep eating or stories that you keep telling yourself or memories that keep revisiting you. And that's why I always advocate for people to read their journal entries back like 2 weeks later because
Mhm.
things become clear.
Oh, okay, I'm just getting all the tips I can right now. one of my intentions for this year is just to like, as I'm on this journey, just to understand like my patterns, like my who I
Wow.
am. That's
Yeah.
really such
That's
a yeah, no, I really think that's such a beautiful way because, at the Loveland Foundation, we are all about just like making mental health like accessible for Black
yeah.
women with non-identifying folks. Like, we just want this to be a place where like you're safe, you feel seen, and that isn't always in therapy sessions itself. And that can be through journaling, that could be through listening to this conversation, that could be through music playlists, that could be through just like how we see people doing their self-love practices and their
Yeah.
self-care, of like worth practices and stuff like that. But yeah, like what has been well, give me like a little self-care routine, like your current self-care routine.
Okay.
You get into
Okay,
me.
let's start with the morning.
Oh, yes. Okay.
Um, I love me morning routine. I'm a morning girl.
Mhm.
Love hearing, the birds chirping, love the sun coming in, I just love it. The morning is just like my favorite time of day. I like to call myself a plant sometimes. I feel like I'm a plant, the way I like just looking for the sun. I'm like just looking for it all the time. Like, where's sun today? Like I'll go on the weather app and be like, is sun coming out today? Like I'm so I just love the way it feels. Like I don't know. She loves the sun. But uh,
Lessons by me.
yeah, like I don't like, oh my gosh, like when it's winter, I'm fighting for my life. Fighting for my life. Fighting for my life. I'm like, please
On that.
come back. But so my journey, my morning routines, I really like to make sure that when I'm creating any form of routine, that it's adaptable,
Mhm.
flexible, not necessarily rigid. It's not time based. It's really feeling based. It's based on what I need. And I always like to make sure that I'm hitting my three pillars of mind, body, and spirit. So for me, for mine, I usually would wake up. I'm very mindful of my sleep. She
Yes.
needs the sleep. You need rest. Rest is not earned. Rest is not if you did a good job. Rest is not if you finished everything that you had to do. Your body literally needs rest. So I don't play around with my sleep. I make sure that I get I'll make sure that I get the hours that I need. So I make sure that my mind is rested. In the morning, I will then start with a little bit of soul first or spirit first. So I'm really deep into my faith, and my faith has always been a strong pillar within my healing and self love journey. So for me, I start my day with my journaling, with my daily devotional, reading my Bible, doing my prayers, and spending time with God to really ask Him for the strength to continue through the day, to ask Him for me to be a light, to ask Him for the the courage to be obedient, and to do these all the big things that I do on a daily basis. So I spend a lot of time just really diving into like the mind and the spirit side of things in the morning. I'm journaling, I'm in my bed journaling, I'm reading the Bible, I'm really spending time. Sometimes I'll do a meditation, may it be a meditation through my app, the Hillsys app, or may it be meditation through like all of the Bible programs that I'm a part of to really make sure that my mind is centered and at ease. We have to start the day like that. I remember back in the day, I used to start my day just reading my emails, opening my
Mm.
phone, open Instagram. Now I don't do no social media until 10 p.m. I mean 10 a.m.
That's
I
nice.
she has a strict schedule over here. No social media until sometimes I go to 2 p.m.
Okay.
And it's important because the first things that you think, the first words that you say, the first things that, become aware to you when your body is slowly coming to is so important. Think about this. This could be extreme, but think about if somebody is waking up from a coma. Would you be
Mhm.
screaming at them and the first time they open their eyes? Yeah, like look at this. Like you won't do that. You won't be screaming. You won't be aggressive. You won't be, you know, you'll be really mindful about the first things that you even say. And I want you to think about your body that way. I'm always really intentional about the first words I even say for the day. Sometimes I won't say anything until I need to just
Mm.
make sure that the first thing, I hate when the first thing I say is damn or ugh or some form of like aggressive tone. Sometimes don't say anything until I say, today is going to be a great day. Or thank you, Lord, for waking me up this morning. Or wow, what a beautiful sleep that was. Or I had the most interesting dream. I try to be really mindful about just the atmosphere that I'm allowing myself to wake up in. Then we go to body. We work out. If we're not working, we're just doing some movement, or sometimes the movement is being still. I like to sit down and just look out my window and just be nosy around the block, like what's going on this morning. Who parked their car where? I'm neighborhood watch, just something. Look at the sky and be like, is the sun coming out this morning? And, all of this does sound really slow and really soft, but it's done with intention. It's done to be slow and soft. It's done so that my first couple of, the first 30 minutes of me being awake is not aggressive. It's not me having to show up. I don't have any kids right now. It's just me in my bigger apartment right now. And I'm really taking in all of that. I'm being so intentional about living alone and really creating a morning routine that is sprinkled in joy and stillness and calmness and prayer and faith and foundation so that I can feel my best within the first hour. Because we don't have control over how the day is going to go. But we could try our best in the first 30 minutes.
Well, I'm gonna make sure it's good. I'm gonna make sure it feels good, it feels right, and I just love the intentionality you bring to even, like, the smallest detail of things, like how you speak to not a small detail, but, like, how you speak to yourself, how you speak to the day. That sounds like you really start your day off with this, like, true spirit of, like, gratitude and, like, just, like,
Yeah, a lot
well,
of gratitude, a lot of gratitude, and a lot of just softness. I'm very intentional about making sure that I'm a soft space for myself, or that I'm a soft thing for myself. So I'd never want to be the aggressor in my life. I don't want to be my own aggressor. I don't want to be my own bully. So I'm really grateful. My night routine is fun. So for me, my self-care night routine looks like sprinkles of joy. I like to give myself one last sprinkle or one last spark of joy before the day ends. It really helps the way you wake up, like when you had a fun night. I mean, the fun meals, but like we're so, like we have, like when you clock out and you do all the things you need to do, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you do your skincare, whatever you need to do. And then I make sure that I either play music, I watch something that brings me joy. And that's really intentional about. Like I can watch all the murder mysteries I want, but the last thing I'm going to see is going to be peaceful.
Yeah.
The thing that I'm going to watch is going to be something that brings me joy, that makes me laugh, something that I really enjoy. So lately it's been watching Tiny Desk concerts. I love Tiny Desk. I just love how raw and authentic it is. Like when you're listening to the one. I love it. So I would just watch my favorite artists, something that brings me joy. I can sing along to it as I'm drinking my water and slowly winding down. And if I'm not doing that, then I'm doing my junk journaling or my scrapbooking, my vision journal, something that again is going to bring me some form of joy. I'll cook something for myself, I'll try a new recipe, and I'm listening to music as I'm chopping everything up, and just really bringing that joy. And then critiquing myself as if I'm on a show. And I'm could have used more salt.
Little episode chop.
Yeah, just to make sure that there's one last spark, one last for bed. Sometimes it's a little dance party. Sometimes the music is not calm. Sometimes the music is fun. And I'm dancing around in my robe. I just try to make sure that the last couple of minutes that I spend before I lay my head is something that was joyful. Because again, we don't know what the next day brings. The only thing I do know is that today is the day that the Lord has made, and I will rejoice and be glad in it. But you never know. You never know. So I just like to give myself that little spark, little
end of the day, a little treat of just I'm here.
yeah.
I had a good day and I'm grateful for the day. No, that is okay. I'm gonna take some notes on this routine.
Maybe put on
Yeah.
light some candles, watch something joy, laugh, crackle. It's so important for us to have those real beautiful belly laughs that come from the soul. We don't have that if we're not in community with people. So it's important to have opportunities for yourself.
And I love that you said that because it almost sounds like you have such a beautiful community within yourself, like, you know who you are, you know what brings you joy, that you're able to bring that sense of, like, love and joy and community that you have and, like,
Yeah.
be in a community with other people, and, like, you create community, you serve your community, you are just, like, constantly giving in a sense because you are filling your cup first. And I love that sentiment so much because we don't ever want, I think as Black women, you're taught to like take care of other people, do this first, be that strong Black woman, be the one who people come to without like really coming to yourself first. And so I'm so curious to know like community because you literally have community, you're a community builder and a community
That
gatherer. So
real
how
extreme
come
working out there.
yes, let them know. But yeah, how has that shaped, like, how you view wellness community?
Oh, wow. For me, I always believed that Black women have always thrived in community. So
Mhm.
why is it when we start, the most impactful, the most difficult, the most different for some of us journeys of our lives, like a like a mental health journey or a spiritual journey or, a physical journey, that we do it by ourselves. And it's because we've been taught to. We've been
Mm.
taught to take on these large journeys by ourselves. Even motherhood, we tend to take on by ourselves. Even if we have the support, sometimes we kind of start to
You're like, "Oh,
impose.
I got it. It's okay."
Yeah, yeah, it's okay. And when we think of all the things, like even grief journeys, we tend to do that by
Mhm.
ourselves. And there's just a trend of Black women taking on the most difficult journeys of their lives by themselves. And I just really wanted to put an end to that.
Yeah.
Especially when I realized that I was doing it when I started my journey 10 years ago, not only was it difficult for me to find community because I'm pretty sure I was like the only person doing it, like at the time. That's how it felt. I felt like I was the only person. When I would look up stuff, I didn't find anything online. Or if I did find something, I didn't find anything from a Black woman or from a Black mental wellness lens. So that was really difficult. So it did feel really lonely. And I just think it's important that Black women know that your healing journey doesn't have to be lonely, that it could be something that's done in community. And although Black women has always thrived in the community, we just tend to forget it in this space. We have always thrived in the group chats. We've thrived, and before the group chats, which is like in our era right now, our parents thrived in having that group of friends. Our grandparents had that group, our grandparents' grandparents had like the church group. There was always a group of Black women doing something together or showing up for each other. And somewhere down the line, we started to self isolate. The self isolating tends to be really similar to self silencing, which tends to come from the strong Black woman trope. And I yearned for Black women to let go of the trope of that trope and adopt other things like being the spontaneous Black woman, being the funny Black woman, being the soft Black woman, being the fun Black woman, and being the Black woman that do things together. So for me, when it comes down to wellness, healing, self love, mental health is something that should be done together because it's something that's such a hard journey. And sometimes you need to hear other people's experiences to know that you're not alone. You need to hear people's testimonies to see that they made it out of hard seasons of their lives to know that it's possible for you. And sometimes you just need to see evidence of a Black woman doing something to know that it's possible.
Yes. That
Yeah.
visual representation and just, like, the idea of having, like, community and seeing other people going through what you're going through and knowing that, like, you really I truly believe we are not meant to do this world alone. Like, we are not meant to deal with
No, we were never meant to. And I don't know who told us that. Randomly, us.
Get out of here.
And we said, okay. I'm just like, oh, there's just
Like, no, that is not what I'm subscribing
no.
to.
Yeah, there's just
But,
so much
no, I just
together. We have to do it
it's
by
like better together always. It really does take a village in every step of the way, and, like, it
This is
just
English for every season of our life. So it's
every season.
exactly. So when we're starting this season, we need to do it in community. Like I cannot
Mhm.
stress enough how much Black women have thrived on community. And that's why I created a community for that to happen. That's why I created the self-love organization so that there'll be resources for Black women to heal in community or experiences or tools for them to heal in community. And some of those experiences have been our international self-love retreats where groups of Black women come together to heal together and on purpose and intentionally while exploring a new culture at the same time, or maybe that experience experience or tool could also manifest itself into my app, the HealSys app.
Okay, well, we love an app. We love community. No, I I'm so excited to just have you share about this because we are wrapping up our episode of just how and this theme of our season for the unfolding is how we heal in community and
Yeah.
how we put that into everyday practice. And yeah, how is that showing up for you in your life right now? How are you putting it into practice?
So right now, in my career life, I'm doing that through the HealSys app.
Yes.
So I decided to create the HealSys app because I wanted to create a space, a soft space for Black women to be able to heal together. I wanted to create a space where mental wellness was affordable and accessible. I wanted a space where Black women who are on similar journeys can meet and connect and really create the community that they need. I feel like what we forget is that for a lot of us, when we're starting these journeys, we're usually we may be the only ones starting them at the time.
Mm.
Our sisters or our best friends or cousins or whoever is our most immediate community may not understand what we're going through or may not be, able to. Maybe they don't have the capacity. Maybe they don't have the tools. And that's okay. They can be there for you in other ways, but sometimes we have to seek the community that we need at the time. And I created HealSys so that there can be a community of Black women healing together to get access to therapy and therapists, to community. I like to think of it as bridging the gap between individual care and community care. I feel like
Mm.
community care is not something that we have fully explored as a people, as Black women, especially within the mental wellness field. It's not something that's really explored. We essentially look at mental wellness as like this individualized journey, and I'm trying to change that, making it more of a community mindset and journey. So we heal in community over at HealSys. We do this through um, having our therapist-led sessions where we talk about different things from attachment styles to trauma responses to love languages to all of the things underneath the self-love umbrella that I mentioned earlier, to having just an open forum to just as a group talk to a therapist and ask her questions. And something that we call it Ask a Therapist is one of my favorite sessions that we hold. And something that's so fun is hearing other people's questions. 'Cause you
Mhm.
that's a good question. I never thought about that or I did go through that before, and it's so interesting to kind of hear other women's stories. There's something so special about Black women sharing stories. And there's something beautiful about the way that we can learn from other people's stories. Everything that we know now is because we heard a story. Every history book, every math, every science is something that was taught from someone else's experience. And it's important that we continue that when it comes down to Black women healing.
Mm. Power of storytelling is so real.
Yeah, power storytelling.
Denise, I could talk to you literally all day. It's so much. And I'm sure the listeners would love to know where they could find you, support you, how they could be in community with you. So I would love for you just take some time and share some insight on how they could support.
Yes. If you want to support, if you want to be a part of the HealSys community, if you want to join a community of Black women healing, may that be in person, or may that be on our app, from our social events that we host every month to our community healing sessions that we have on our app, from our book clubs to our walk clubs and everything underneath, essentially just creating a healing community of Black women. You can find me over at theselfloveorganization.com. That's where you can find our retreats. That's where you can find our book. That's where you can find our app and everything underneath the sun. If you wanted to follow me on a daily basis and see my journey and how I share it and kind of see healing in real life, the good, the bad, and the ugly, then you can follow me over at Live Naturally Love on all platforms.
Thank you so much, Denise.
Of course. This was so beautiful.
Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you all for joining us for a very special episode of The Unfolding, presented by the Loveland Foundation. At the Loveland Foundation, we are committed to showing up for communities of color in unique and powerful ways, with a particular focus on Black women and girls. Our resources and initiatives are collaborative, and they prioritize opportunity, access, validation, and healing. Since our founding, the Therapy Fund has provided financial support for therapy to over 13,000 Black women, girls, and non-binary individuals across the country. This year, our goal is to provide free therapy to at least 6,000 more. If you'd like to join us and invest in generational change, visit our website at thelovelandfoundation.org for ways to give. To stay updated on new episodes and any future programming, follow us on Instagram and Meta, or check out our website at thelovelandfoundation.org.